Yo, Joe! In our first mission, we uncovered 10 wild facts about G.I. Joe, a real American hero, and how this 80s cartoon became a pop culture giant. But just like any good Cobra scheme, there's always more hidden beneath the surface. This time, we're going even deeper with 10 more wild facts about the classic G.I. Joe cartoon that most fans still don't know. From legendary intros and forgotten miniseries to strange casting choices and bizarre storylines, there's a lot more to this show than meets the eye. Before we roll out, subscribe to Pure Nostalgia and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next mission into the cartoons and toys that defined the 80s and 90s. Fact 1. The M.A.S.S device miniseries was a proof-of-concept movie. Long before G.I. Joe became a regular TV series, it first appeared as a 5-part animated miniseries built around a powerful teleporter called the M.A.S.S device. This storyline wasn't just a random adventure, it was designed as a test to see if kids would show up for a more serialized, movie-like cartoon event. The plot sent G.I. Joe and Cobra racing around the world to collect rare catalytic elements needed to power rival M.A.S.S devices, with Duke captured and forced to fight in Cobra's arena of sport, and Snake Eyes risking his life in a radioactive zone. It had everything: high stakes, exotic locations, sacrifice, and big sci-fi ideas. When the miniseries pulled strong ratings and sold a mountain of toys, Hasbro and Sunbow knew they had something special. The success of the M.A.S.S device directly paved the way for more miniseries like The Revenge of Cobra and eventually the full-blown ongoing series fans remember. Fact 2. The opening sequence is still considered one of the best ever. The iconic G.I. Joe opening is basically a mini-action movie compressed into about a minute. You get a full battle in the sky, on the ground, and even inside Cobra's massive airship, all animated with a level of fluidity and detail that regular episodes rarely matched. Every second of that intro is loaded. The line of Joe vehicles charging forward, Cobra forces swarming, soldiers leaping from explosions, and the Joe team storming the battlefield under that banner of that booming theme song. It sells the fantasy instantly. This is a war for freedom, and the Joes are the ultimate heroes. Fans and critics still rank this opening among the greatest cartoon intros of the 1980s, and some even call it one of the best of all time. It set a tone of epic, cinematic action that few other shows could match, and it's a huge reason why the series is burned into people's memories.
Fact 3. Snake Eyes became a superstar without speaking a word. In most cartoons, popularity comes from dialogue, jokes, and catchphrases, but Snake Eyes broke that rule completely. He's silent, fully masked, dressed in black, and says absolutely nothing, yet he became one of the most beloved characters in the entire franchise. His appeal comes from attitude and mystique. The way he moves, fights, and sacrifices himself in stories like the M.A.S.S device made him feel more like a mythic warrior than a typical Saturday morning character. Kids projected their own personalities onto him and imagined what he might be thinking, which made him even more powerful as a figure of childhood imagination. That combination of visual design, mystery, and elite skill turned Snake Eyes into the face of G.I. Joe for many fans. Even in a world packed with loud personalities and big speeches, the quietest Joe often spoke the loudest in fan hearts. Fact 4. Storm Shadow's redemption was very different in the cartoon versus comics. Storm Shadow started in the cartoon as Cobra's deadly ninja, loyal to the enemy and constantly clashing with Snake Eyes. In the comics, however, his story evolved into something much deeper, a man whose loyalty and morality were twisted by tragedy, brainwashing, and complicated family ties, eventually leading him to switch sides and join G.I. Joe. The animated series kept him mostly on the villain side, simplifying his arc for younger viewers and focusing on his role as a dangerous rival. That means cartoon-only fans never saw the full redemption story that made him one of the most complex characters in the franchise. This split between cartoon Storm Shadow and comic Storm Shadow is one of the biggest examples of how G.I. Joe existed in parallel versions. Depending on which version you grew up with, you may think of him as either a tragic anti-hero seeking redemption or just the coolest ninja Cobra ever hired. Fact 5. The laser war look was a strategy to soften real military violence. One of the most distinctive things about G.I. Joe is the way battles are shown. Almost every weapon fires bright, colorful laser beams instead of realistic bullets. Jets and tanks shoot energy blasts, not shells, and even handheld rifles look more like sci-fi blasters than real-world guns. This wasn't just a style choice, it was a strategy. By making the combat look futuristic and exaggerated, the show could feature constant battles without crossing the line into graphic or realistic war imagery. It turned lethal weapons into something more abstract and toy-like, which helped keep parents and broadcasters happier. The end result was a strange hybrid, clearly about soldiers and terrorists, but visually closer to a fantasy sci-fi battle. That laser war aesthetic became part of what made G.I. Joe feel unique, and it also made the toy weapons more fun for kids to imagine in their own backyard battles.
Fact 6. Little Guy episodes helped sell deep-cut toys. G.I. Joe had a massive roster, and the show didn't always focus only on the big names like Duke, Flint, or Lady J. Some episodes pushed secondary or lesser-known Joes into the spotlight, building entire stories around a single specialist or obscure character. On one level, this was smart storytelling. It reinforced that G.I. Joe was an elite team where every member had a unique role and could be the hero of the day. On another level, it was brilliant marketing, giving screen time to figures that might not sell on name recognition alone. For kids, these episodes meant that even the weird figures in their collection felt important. If an oddball Joe got a full episode, suddenly that toy wasn't just a background soldier, it was a main character in their personal adventures at home. Fact 7. G.I. Joe sometimes went full weird with experimental episodes. While a lot of stories were straightforward military versus Cobra missions, some episodes went completely off the rails in fun ways. Time travel, alternate dimensions, cursed artifacts, dream worlds, and body-swapping plots all showed up at various points in the series. These experimental episodes let writers try different genres inside the same show: horror, psychological thriller, surreal comedy, even mild existential weirdness. It proved that G.I. Joe wasn't locked into just one type of story and could stretch far beyond Mission of the Week. Fans still debate which of these strange episodes were hidden gems and which were just bizarre misfires, but either way, they helped give the series a reputation for being more varied and ambitious than a simple straight-line toy commercial. Fact 8. International dubs changed voices, accents, and sometimes tone. When G.I. Joe was localized for different countries, the dubbing process didn't just swap English for another language. Local voice actors brought their own style, and sometimes that meant big changes in how characters came across. In some regions, tough or stern characters were given softer, more comedic deliveries. In others, accents were added or removed, and jokes were rewritten to match local humor. A character who sounded like a serious commander in English might come off more laid back or even goofy in another language. That means your personal version of G.I. Joe depends heavily on where you grew up. Two fans from different countries might have completely different impressions of the very same character, simply because of how the local dub chose to portray them. Fact 9. The movie's legendary Statue of Liberty intro wasn't supposed to be an intro. G.I. Joe the movie opens with an over-the-top sequence where Cobra attacks the Statue of Liberty and the Joes launch a full assault to defend it. It's widely considered one of the greatest pieces of G.I. Joe animation ever, intense, patriotic, and beautifully choreographed. What most fans don't know is that this scene was originally planned to be the movie's final climax. During production, the creative team realized it was too good to bury at the end and decided to move it to the very beginning instead, using it as an explosive introduction to set the tone. That decision worked. Even people who are lukewarm on the rest of the movie still adore that opening. For many fans, you can almost watch that intro alone as a short film that captures the essence of G.I. Joe in just a few minutes. Fact 10. G.I. Joe's format became a blueprint for other team shows. G.I. Joe's structure, a large, colorful team of specialists fighting a clear villain organization with sci-fi tech, moral lessons, and a dash of humor, turned out to be incredibly influential. Many later cartoons borrowed pieces of that formula when building their own ensemble casts. The idea that every member has a code name, signature look, unique skill, and distinct personality shows up in everything from superhero squads to spacefaring crews. The notion of an evil organization with a striking logo and themed troops also became standard, thanks in part to Cobra's strong visual identity. Even if later shows didn't directly copy G.I. Joe, they often followed the path it laid down. Big team, big villain, lots of toys, and an episodic structure layered over an ongoing conflict. In that sense, G.I. Joe didn't just entertain kids, it quietly rewrote the playbook for team-based action cartoons. G.I. Joe, a real American hero, keeps proving that it was far more layered than just a cartoon for selling toys. The more you look, the more you find. Legendary intros, bold miniseries, silent heroes, redeemed villains, strange experiments, and ideas that shaped the entire landscape of action animation. If Part 1 gave you a new appreciation for how this series was built, hopefully Part 2 showed just how deep the rabbit hole really goes. From the M.A.S.S. device to the Statue of Liberty battle, from Snake Eyes' silence to Storm Shadow's split personality across different media, G.I. Joe left footprints all over 80s pop culture, and they're still visible today. Now it's your turn again. Which of these new facts surprised you the most? Do you remember the miniseries, the movie intro, or any of the weirder episodes? And what other 80s or 90s cartoon deserves a 10 More Wild Facts sequel? Tell us in the comments. If this second mission into Joe history brought back more memories, subscribe to Pure Nostalgia, hit like, and ring the bell so you never miss our next deep dive into the cartoons and toys that made the 80s and 90s legendary. Yo Joe.